Hey guys, welcome back to Envision Prototypes. I'm Nick, coming to you from the front fender of this 1956 Chrysler Windsor Newport. Newport designation means it's a hardtop, for you guys who are wondering. Now, I've been reading through a lot of the comments and we got some interesting ideas for this project. So if you caught the first couple episodes, you would have seen us snag this car out of a bush where it's been sitting for who knows how long. Then we threw some fuel down the throat of the engine. It barked at us, told us it was happy, meaning it wasn't knocking. So now we can throw a carburetor on it and see if this engine sings. If it sings and it's happy, then we're going to keep the engine. And I'll let you know at the end of the episode what we're going to do with this behemoth. Stay tuned. So this chunk of metal here, it's a Carter CFB that originally came with the Poly 331. Somebody decided that since they couldn't get the engine running, it was probably a fuel delivery issue. And I'm not saying it wasn't, but it might have needed a tune-up or something, but it really wasn't the carburetor's fault. The carburetor was good. If you saw the second episode, you would have seen it was the spark plugs. They had the wrong length. It makes a huge difference to get the right spark. So anyway, getting back to this carburetor, whoever had it disassembled it right down to nothing, to a bunch of containers with bits and pieces, and they attempted to rebuild it, and then whatever happened and they stopped. So we looked over it, saw what was here and what wasn't here, and mainly the metering rods, a bunch of linkages, cams, a lot of that stuff's missing. There was no real point in trying to resurrect this. So I went on the interweb and found one of these. This is a 650 CFM carburetor. It's a little bit large for that engine, but with the vacuum secondaries, we should be okay. I've got my fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes and if it makes the engine run reasonably well. I did have to come up with a fuel line adapter because it didn't come with one. No problem. Came up with that. So now we can go ahead and get this on the car. But before we do that, I had to show you something. You see this bolt pattern? That's what fits that engine intake manifold. Unfortunately, because these secondaries are so large, they were actually hitting the intake. The holes weren't large enough. So I got one of these spacers. We had to kick it around the shelf, and it should work out. It should match up with those holes. We're going to drop this down on the intake and see how it looks. The other issue that we're going to have to deal with is the length of studs to bolt this thing down. The back ones might not be an issue, I'm not sure yet. With this spacer, there could be. They might not be adequate enough in terms of length, but these front ones are long, and the studs that are there won't come up to the top. So we'll have to get some bolts for that for now and see what we can do, because this cannot just sit on the intake manifold. Anybody knows anything about fuel air mixture, it has to be precise. If you have air seeping around the bottom of the carburetor, she's not going to run. Let's put this back here for now, and let's go see what we have under the hood. Okay, so that's what we have here. We got the air filter. Don't need that for now. Get rid of that. The original gasket, probably not too good. No, so we can get rid of that. Peel it off. Gotta be careful, don't drop anything inside that intake. It would not be a good thing. Just looking at this, I can already tell that these studs, one's missing, are going to be too short. Drop this on there, you can see they're barely sticking up past the top. So we're gonna have to pull these studs out and find something longer. You can see how small these holes are. Not about, well, you can't really drill them out any bigger. So this is gonna save our butts. Throw the spacer on here. Okay, intake protector on. We don't want to drop anything down inside those holes and have to remove the intake manifold at this point. I'm going to need to take these studs out, and there's a little trick behind this. I'm sure a lot of you guys know that, but for the ones that don't know, we're going to use the nuts that held the carburetor down on this engine, and we're going to use two nuts, run them together, and try and back these studs out. Might need a little bit of heat on there. We'll see. I'm going to run one, first nut on, get it down. That's not bad actually. Okay, and then we'll run the second nut down to that one. Jam them together, and then try and back this whole thing out. The other way. Hey, hey, success. I was expecting a fight on my hands. That there is the old choke element heater. Hey, very nice. Two nuts jammed together helped us back the stud out. There's no other way unless you get some vice grips on the end and try backing it out that way. Yeah. That was tight. Okay, let's see if we can get the second one out. We'll probably have the most trouble with the fourth one. Because the last stud is always the last stud. Okay. Come on. Nope. I talked too soon. Oh, there we go. It was just spinning, so we backed it off. It's a long way into here. With the Chrysler Windsor and Imperials versus, say, Dodge and Plymouth, they set the engine back further in the chassis. I guess for better handling and performance. There we go. So not too bad. Somebody had skipped off on that one, but that's okay. It did its job. So as I was saying, they set the engine back about 6 inches further, and that's why the extra distance behind the front wheels, between the front wheel and the front of the back of the wheel and the front of the door. So this lends itself to a performance setup. Weight distribution's huge in a race car. At least that's what I was told. Oop. That was a close one. I only found 2 nuts, the original nuts, that came with this carburetor, so one was missing. Look at that, no effort. Oh, that one's bent. That is pretty wild. Holy moly, what would it take to bend a stud like that? Whew. You can actually see it. See, towards the left it goes downward. Too wild. Okay, I don't need to take the nuts off of this. Save a few minutes. Okay, this is going to be tricky because we don't have studs that long. I managed to find some bolts. So we're going to have to be careful when we bolt it down. I don't want to damage the gasket in any way. So based on this carburetor secondaries are at the back, we have to make sure that this spacer is set back with the larger holes towards the back. I guess I could run a bolt in and start aligning it that way, but that's okay. Yeah, we need another gasket. Okay, second and final gasket. Everything's aligned. And then we're going to lower this down nice and gentle. Since we don't have a means to align it on some studs. Okay, doesn't that look pretty? Now we've got some bolts here, I went ahead and cleaned the threads up. I ran a die down the threads, made sure they're clean, because we don't want to be fighting with this in any way. And what we're going to do, well, let's start with the front ones first. See, come in through here. That's going to be the tricky part, to get everything aligned. Here we go, wiggle, wiggle. I guess we can lift this up a little bit. There we go. Don't want to cross thread it. One down, 3 to go. Don't get me wrong, I would have enjoyed the challenge of trying to rebuild that old Carter. The thing is, that doesn't feel right. We got her. Okay, so as I was saying before I was interrupted, hey, it's got a magnet on the bottom. I didn't even know that. I did. For some reason, this bolt doesn't want to thread. Nope, I don't like that. Let's try another bolt. I've got 2 more. The last thing you want to do is get your, look at that. Okay, so now we know. Last thing you want to do is get 1 or 2 threads, think it holds, and then grab the wrench and reef down on it. Strip the threads. Okay. Feels good. We're going to do a little crisscross pattern here. You don't want to twist anything. It's been a while since I played with a carburetor. Want it to be snug. Okay, that's it. Now, linkage wise, we're not going to bother hooking up the gas pedal. That's the link right there. Choke, we're not going to bother, just get her opened up. Now we do have a hose on the manifold, we should plug that. Now this carburetor's got a lot of takeoffs on it and really don't need all of that. This has got a threaded line here. I'm going to cut that off because we're not going to be using that. We'll get a rubber hose to go from there to ported vacuum for the carburetor, or for the distributor. And we'll get the fuel line there. Fuel pumps down there coming from the tank. I don't want to pull anything from the tank just yet. I just want to feed the carburetor directly from the fuel pump using a small little can we have. And that should be it. So I got to plug that off. Now whenever I do fool around with engines like this, the old engines, I'll throw in some 2-cycle engine oil just to help lubricate everything while we're trying to get it to run. Let's plug that. Golf tees are fantastic for this, but we don't have any that size. Alright, so we got the fuel tank or fuel supply hooked up to the fuel pump. We're going to avoid the pulling from the actual tank in the car because I don't know the condition of that. It looks new on the outside, but you can't really tell on the inside. And I want to eliminate any variables that might affect us from trying to get this thing running. So it comes up through the filter to the carb. And while I was hooking up the coil to the ballast resistor here, I came across this buried down inside. It was like shoved way down. So I don't know what the condition of this reservoir brake system accordion diaphragm deal is. So we're going to eliminate that entirely and just leave that bolt that I stuck in there earlier in there. And we'll stick this out of the way just like that. We're going to eliminate the key. We actually got it starting on the key. Remember that little terminal that came off. That was for the key, so that works. But to save me jumping in out of the car, we're just going to hotwire it right here with that red lead. Just jump it over. I want to see what's happening with the fuel pump, what's coming up, and yeah. Okay, just going over everything one more time, making sure it's not a very complicated system. As long as you have fuel, sparks, you should go. Just want to make sure that we don't have anything in the way. Everything's clear. And in terms of oil, we always check the oil. We checked it when we picked up the car. Everything's fine that way. Tranny fluid, you smell it, taste it, everything's good there. Water level, it's up. We do live in Canada, the antifreeze is good, so that's one of the first things we always check because we don't want to lose the block. Let's give this a go, see what happens. I'm going to disconnect the coil for now. We're going to crank it over, get the oil pressure up. Good. We've got fuel coming up. You can see it. The bluest tinge, that's the 2-cycle oil. Let's give her a squirt, see what happens. Oh, we got a fuel leak. Just as I suspected. One thing I forgot to tighten. That's a good sign though, because we do have fuel coming up to the carb. See that? Loose. Good. All right, so after going over everything twice, I still forgot to tighten the fuel line, the fitting right here. So that's done, that's good. That being said, we've got great fuel coming in, and that's coming from our own tank, so we know it's clean, it's filtered, all set. Let's see if we have any fuel. After that little bit of cranking up in here. Yep, we got squirtage. Good. Didn't bother connecting the choke. We're gonna see if what happens just as it is. Give one more shot. Yeah, 2 shots. Here we go. Good sign. The crazy thing is, this is taken right out of the box. The only thing I did was add a fitting. I didn't do any tuning to it at all, just slapped it on top, as you saw, and she idles. And she sounds really good. I'm really happy about that. Okay, let us eliminate all these jumper wires, go inside the car, see if the key actually turns it over. Sounds sweet. Running a little bit rich in here. You can probably see the plume of smoke up above there. But we got the doors open, so it's all good. We don't need this fuel rag. That can go away. Do we have any leaks? Let's check for leaks. Fitting up above is perfectly dry. Everything looks in order. I swear there's a ghost in this car. What was that? Oh, one of the steering wheels fell over in the car. Okay, never mind. Halloween is over. I don't know why I'm so, whatever. Okay, let's hook up the throttle so I can actually do something from inside the car. That'll work. Starts from the key. Idle's pretty good too. Had to pull the gas back a bit. Okay, one thing I discovered is the wheels aren't going around. They seem to want to go, but they're not. Let's try one more time. The wheels are going around. We got reverse. And the gauges are working. We got high oil pressure. No fuel in the tank. I think it was charging. I saw the needle bounce a bit. And temperature-wise, she's still cold. So I'm curious to see if we can take it around the block. Well, that was interesting. You push neutral, she goes in reverse. Push low, she goes in drive. So we gotta make some adjustments. Otherwise, this goes around the block nicely.
Talk for themselves. You gotta rent it.
Yeah. All right, guys, so that was exciting to say the least. It moves under its own power, and that's something I didn't expect out of this car. The engine was seized. We couldn't get it to budge initially. We got some tranny fluid in there, let it soak for a while, and we managed. There's a crazy bird and a squirrel. A squirrel's chasing a bird. Anyway, got it unseized. Got the carburetor issue resolved by slapping on a new carburetor. It's going to work for now. It got the car moving. That's fine. And the transmission moves. A little tricky though. Things are kind of mixed up a little bit. So getting to move around without, in tight quarters, I'm not going to bother backing into the shop because it's got no brakes. It's got that emergency brake on the drive shaft, but will you let me finish? Thank you. That emergency brake with my left hand, trying to drive with that. not too practical. So it's not like we can take this down the road and see what she really does. And it'd be illegal too. So what we're gonna do with this car, you guys have given us a lot of fantastic ideas. We're gonna run with a two-door theme. Thing is, we're gonna put this car on a huge diet. It can lose a few pounds and inches. We're keeping this 331 poly. It sounds really, really good. And maybe with a little bit of tuning, it'll sound a little bit better, but I'm really happy the way it sounds. So stay tuned for this build. We're gonna be starting on this winter. This is gonna be pretty intensive build. You saw the 51 Ford that we did. This is going to involve a little more cutting and pasting with the body to make it look good, because it does have some awkward proportions. And we'll get into more of the details when we start the build. So thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed this first start video, or second start video. First start without a carburetor, so I don't know if that counts. But the second start video with a carburetor and a little drive around the parking lot. All right guys, take care.